Carlos Alcaraz's rise to stardom in the tennis world has been nothing short of extraordinary. The young Spaniard, with his electrifying athletic prowess and unmatched ability to command the court, has captured the admiration and hearts of tennis enthusiasts worldwide. However, behind the glittering accolades and roaring applause lies a less visible, yet deeply complex journey that only a few close to him truly understand. Behind the scenes, the road has been far from smooth. Intense expectations, emotional strain, and the unrelenting pressure of being one of the most talked-about players in the sport weigh heavily on Alcaraz. His coach, renowned for his meticulous nature and unwavering standards, recently opened up about the unique challenges and rewards of guiding the young prodigy. Carlos is, without a doubt, one of the most naturally gifted players I've ever worked with, his coach revealed. His instincts, tactical understanding, and ability to thrive under pressure are exceptional. But with that level of talent comes an immense burden, not just for him, but for me as his coach. That's where the difficulty often lies. Training Alcaraz, the coach explained, is anything but straightforward. The player's relentless pursuit of perfection, while a hallmark of his greatness, can also become a double-edged sword. Carlos doesn't settle for anything less than excellence, the coach shared. That mindset separates good players from great ones, but it also means he's incredibly hard on himself. A single bad practice session can linger with him for hours, even days. He fixates on every missed shot, every misstep, replaying them endlessly in his mind. The pursuit of flawlessness often leads to moments of tension. The coach recounted instances where Alcaraz refused to leave the practice court long after his teammates had packed up for the day. He would keep hitting ball after ball, determined to correct what he thought was wrong. I'd have to step in and remind him that rest is just as vital as training. Those conversations are never easy. The toll of maintaining his elite status isn't confined to physical efforts. It's a mental battle as well. People see Carlos as this fearless, confident athlete, but behind the scenes, he grapples with a lot of anxiety and self-doubt, the coach admitted. He constantly questions if he's improving quickly enough or meeting expectations. My role is to reassure him, but sometimes he gets so caught up in his thoughts that breaking through is challenging. Navigating the relentless scrutiny of fans and media adds another layer of complexity. Every match, every tournament comes with the expectation that he'll win, the coach noted. People see his potential and assume he should dominate, but tennis doesn't work that way. There are highs and lows, and dealing with the disappointment of a loss can be particularly hard on Carlos. He takes it personally, which can be draining for both of us. Yet, despite these challenges, the coach emphasized that the rewards of working with Alcaraz far outweigh the difficulties. Watching him grow, not just as a player but as a person, has been incredibly fulfilling. He's not just a phenomenal athlete, he's a genuinely kind and caring individual. He values his team, his family, and his fans deeply, which makes all the hard work worthwhile. The coach also shared insights into Alcaraz's unique approach to the game. Carlos is incredibly analytical. He doesn't just want to know how to execute a shot, he wants to understand why it works. That curiosity is one of his greatest strengths, though it can sometimes slow things down as he questions everything until he's satisfied. It's challenging, but it's also what makes him such a brilliant player. Reflecting on the future, the coach expressed unwavering confidence in Alcaraz's potential. Carlos has the ability to be one of the all-time greats. But it's important to remember that he's still young. He has a lot of growing to do, both as a player and as a person. My job is to help guide him through that journey, and I'm committed to doing everything I can to support him. The relationship between Alcaraz and his coach, built on mutual respect and trust, isn't without its moments of friction. The coach recounted a heated exchange during a tournament earlier this year. Carlos was frustrated with his performance and lashed out during a practice session. It was one of those moments where emotions were running high, and we both said things we didn't mean. But later, he came to me and apologized. That's the kind of person he is. Someone who's not afraid to admit when he's wrong. Balancing the need to push Alcaraz to his limits while giving him space to grow is a delicate dance. You want to drive him to be his best, but you don't want to push so hard that he burns out. Finding that balance is one of the toughest parts of this job, the coach said. Carlos is under constant scrutiny. Every move he makes on and off the court is analyzed and critiqued. As his coach, I feel a responsibility to shield him from some of that, but there's only so much I can do. Alcaraz's relentless drive, while remarkable, also comes with risks. The mental strain is enormous. Carlos doesn't stop thinking about tennis, not even during his downtime. He analyzes matches, watches videos, and asks questions. I've had to enforce mandatory rest days just to give his mind a break, though I suspect he's still sneaking in some video analysis when I'm not looking, the coach said with a chuckle, though his concern was evident. That kind of drive is rare, but it's also dangerous. Burnout is a real risk, especially for someone so young. Despite the challenges, the coach remains optimistic. Carlos is a fighter. He faces challenges that would break lesser players, yet he comes back stronger every time. Working with him isn't always easy, but it's a privilege. I believe in him, and I know he's capable of achieving incredible things. The road ahead won't be easy, but with hard work and determination, I have no doubt he'll reach his full potential. In the end, Alcaraz's journey is about more than just tennis. It's a testament to perseverance, passion, and an unwavering pursuit of greatness. It's a story that continues to inspire fans around the globe, reminding us all of the power of hard work and dedication. As the coach concluded, Carlos isn't just playing the game. He's redefining what it means to be a champion. Carlos Alcaraz's journey is defined by a relentless drive to excel, but it's this very intensity that can sometimes overshadow the human side of his character. His coach, who has been by his side through countless challenges, recently shared a story that perfectly captures the essence of Alcaraz's work ethic. There was a day meant to be light, a short session focused on basic exercises, nothing too strenuous, the coach began. Midway through, Carlos decided he wasn't happy with his backhand. Before I knew it, what was supposed to be a relaxed session turned into a grueling marathon. He hit hundreds of backhands, sweat pouring off him, refusing to stop until he felt he'd corrected the issue. I had to physically pull him off the court. He argued with me, saying he needed to get it right. That's Carlos for you. He doesn't do anything halfway. This unyielding determination, while admirable, is not rooted in arrogance or entitlement. The coach explained, he's not like this because he thinks he's better than everyone else. Quite the opposite, actually. Carlos constantly worries he's not doing enough, that someone out there is outworking him. That fear drives him, but it also haunts him. Alcaraz's pursuit of perfection is not only mentally taxing but also emotionally exhausting. He expects so much from himself, and when he falls short, he's incredibly harsh on himself, the coach said. After a loss, he replays every point in his mind, searching for what he could have done differently. It's admirable, but it's also draining. I often have to remind him that even the greatest players in history have bad days, that failure is part of the game. As the conversation turned more personal, the coach's voice softened. Carlos isn't just my player. He's someone I deeply care about. I see the sacrifices he makes, what this journey demands of him. There are moments when he's just a 20-year-old kid who wants to enjoy life, but he feels like he can't because of the expectations on him. I try to remind him to step back and savor the journey, but it's hard for him to let go, even for a moment. Balancing the roles of coach and mentor is a delicate act. I have to push him to reach his potential, but I also have to protect him. From himself, from the pressures, from the inevitable doubts. It's a constant balancing act. If I push too hard, I risk breaking him. If I don't push hard enough, he might not achieve what he's capable of. It's a fine line, and I walk it every day. The emotional toll of being so invested in Alcaraz's career is something the coach didn't shy away from. When Carlos is happy, I'm happy. When he's frustrated, I feel it too. His highs and lows become mine, and that's not something they teach you in coaching school. It's an emotional investment that's both rewarding and exhausting. One story stood out to the coach as a testament to Alcaraz's resilience. During one of the toughest periods of his career, when nothing seemed to go right, Carlos showed up to practice with the same determination as always. He didn't complain, didn't make excuses, he just worked harder. That's who he is. He doesn't shy away from challenges. He faces them head-on, and that's what makes him so special. The sacrifices Alcaraz has made to reach his level of success are staggering. People see the trophies, the fame, the glory, but they don't see what he's given up to get here. He's missed out on normal experiences, time with family, hanging out with friends, just being a regular young man. And yet, he never complains. He's fully committed to this path, and that's rare, the coach said, pausing before adding, but sometimes, I wonder if he realizes what he's sacrificing. He's so focused on the goal that I'm not sure he's thought about the cost. That's something I worry about. Not just as his coach, but as someone who cares about him as a person. The challenges of training someone constantly in the spotlight add another layer of complexity. Carlos can't make a mistake without the world watching. Every misstep, every off day, it's all under scrutiny. That kind of pressure is unimaginable for most people, but it's his reality. And it's my job to help him navigate it. Despite the difficulties, the coach's admiration for Alcaraz is unwavering. Carlos is one of the most extraordinary people I've ever met. He's not perfect, none of us are, but he inspires everyone around him to be better. Working with him isn't easy, but it's an honor. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Describing Alcaraz's duality, the coach said, Carlos is a paradox in many ways. On one hand, he's fiercely independent, determined to solve his own problems and take responsibility for every aspect of his game. On the other hand, he craves guidance. He'll ask the most detailed questions about strategies, biomechanics, even the psychology of his opponents. He's constantly seeking a deeper understanding, not just of tennis, but of how everything fits together. Alcaraz's intensity borders on obsessive at times. When Carlos focuses on something, it's like the rest of the world disappears. He can spend hours refining a single shot, repeating the same motion over and over until it feels perfect. Most players have a threshold where they'll settle for good enough, but for Carlos, good enough doesn't exist. It's perfection or nothing. This unrelenting mindset, while extraordinary, also worries the coach. He doesn't see limits the way others do. If his body tells him to stop, his mind pushes him to keep going. There have been moments where I've had to physically intervene, telling him to rest, hydrate, take a moment to breathe. Even then, he argues, insisting he can go further, push harder. The coach's tone was a mix of admiration and concern. That drive is what makes him extraordinary, but it's also what worries me the most. You can't always be at 100%. Learning to accept that is one of the hardest lessons for someone like Carlos. He sees every setback, no matter how small, as a failure, and he takes it personally. It's as if he carries the weight of proving himself to the world, and that weight never lets up. This mentality extends beyond the court. Even when he's away from tennis, he's not really away. He's constantly thinking, analyzing, planning. He never truly switches off, and that's both his greatest strength and his greatest challenge. The coach summed up his feelings with a thoughtful pause. Carlos is a fighter, a perfectionist, and a dreamer. Working with him is demanding, exhausting, and incredibly rewarding all at once. It's not easy, but it's a privilege. And despite everything, I know he's destined for greatness. Not just because of his talent, but because of the person he is. I've seen him sitting in the middle of a lively dinner with other young players, completely lost in his thoughts. You could tell his mind was elsewhere, probably replaying a match in his head or meticulously planning for the next one. It's as if his brain never switches off, his coach said, offering a glimpse into the unique mindset of Carlos Alcaraz. This relentless focus and drive are what set him apart, but they also reveal a perfectionism that can sometimes verge on self-punishment. If Carlos feels he hasn't met his own expectations, he'll dwell on it for days, the coach shared. It doesn't matter if it's something no one else even noticed. Maybe a slightly off-angled serve or a footwork misstep that didn't even cost him the point. He'll analyze it endlessly until he's satisfied he knows exactly what went wrong and how to fix it. The coach paused, a small smile breaking the seriousness of his tone. But what's remarkable is that it's not about ego. It's not about proving he's better than anyone else. For Carlos, it's about proving to himself that he's capable of more. That's what drives him. The idea that there's always room to grow. Alcaraz's coach also delved into the emotional depth he brings to the game. Carlos wears his heart on his sleeve. Every point, every rally, it all means so much to him. That kind of passion is rare, but it also makes him vulnerable. When things don't go the way he wants, it hits him hard. He doesn't brush it off. He feels it deeply. My job as his coach is to help him channel those emotions in a way that fuels him, rather than drains him. The coach recalled a particularly intense training session that highlighted this emotional vulnerability. We were working on a new tactic, and it just wasn't clicking for him. You could see the frustration building. At one point, he just stopped, threw his racket down, and walked off the court. I followed him, expecting an outburst, but instead, he just stood there, staring into the distance. When I asked what was wrong, he said, "I know I can do better, but I don't know why I'm not." That's Carlos. He's harder on himself than anyone else could ever be. These moments, the coach admitted, are both challenging and rewarding. It's tough to watch him struggle, but it's also a reminder of how much he cares. He's not content to rely on his natural talent or past successes. He's always looking for ways to improve, even if it means confronting his own frustrations. Carlos's curiosity and willingness to embrace new approaches, even when they challenge him, also stand out. Carlos isn't afraid to try something different, even if it means stepping out of his comfort zone. He'll ask why we're doing a particular exercise, not to challenge me, but because he genuinely wants to understand the reasoning behind it. Once he gets it, he's all in. That kind of openness is rare, especially in someone so young. The coach chuckled, recounting how Alcaraz's curiosity extends beyond the court. He's always asking questions, not just about tennis but about nutrition, recovery, even the science behind the equipment he uses. I've had to brush up on my knowledge of string tension and racket materials just to keep up with him. If I don't have an answer, he'll go find it himself. Despite his intensity, the coach emphasized Alcaraz's grounded nature. Carlos is incredibly humble. He doesn't let fame or accolades get to his head. He treats everyone on the team with respect, from the physiotherapist to the hitting partners. He understands that his success isn't just about him. It's about the people who support him. And he never takes that for granted. One moment, in particular, captured Alcaraz's humility. After a big win, while everyone else was celebrating, Carlos went out of his way to thank each team member individually. He didn't have to do that, but he did because that's who he is. He understands the value of teamwork and the importance of acknowledging the effort that goes on behind the scenes. As the coach continued, it became clear that his relationship with Alcaraz is about more than just tennis. Our partnership is built on trust, mutual respect, and a shared commitment to excellence. Carlos challenges me to be a better coach, just as I push him to be a better player. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. At the end of the day, that's what makes this journey so special. Reflecting on their work together, the coach's expression softened. People often forget that Carlos is still growing, physically, emotionally, and mentally. He's not yet fully formed, but he's expected to handle responsibilities and pressures that would overwhelm someone twice his age. It's a delicate balance, nurturing his talent without overwhelming him. The physical demands on Alcaraz's game, which relies on explosive agility and tireless energy, are immense. To maintain that intensity, his body has to be in peak condition. But it's not just about working harder in the gym. It's about knowing when to pull back, when to focus on recovery, when to prioritize flexibility or mobility over pure strength. Carlos doesn't always agree with those decisions. He's not the kind to say, "Okay, I'll rest today." If he could, he'd be on the court from sunrise to sunset. The coach smiled knowingly. That's part of what makes him exceptional, but it's also why I have to set limits. There are days when I've had to physically take his racket away and tell him, "No more today." He'll protest, of course, but deep down, I think he knows I'm looking out for him. Managing Alcaraz's youthful enthusiasm while bringing the wisdom of experience to their partnership is a constant challenge. Carlos is so driven that he sometimes loses sight of the bigger picture. He'll fixate on perfecting one aspect of his game to the point of obsession, even if it's at the expense of other areas. That's where I come in, to remind him that tennis is a marathon, not a sprint. It's about sustainable progress, not just immediate results. Discussing the psychological aspect of their work, the coach said, Carlos is incredibly self-aware, which is both a blessing and a challenge. He knows when he's not at his best, and he doesn't make excuses. But that self-awareness can sometimes turn into self-doubt. He starts questioning whether he's doing enough, improving fast enough, or living up to expectations. The coach paused, choosing his words carefully. Carlos carries the weight of proving himself, not just to the world but to himself. That weight doesn't disappear. But it's also what makes him extraordinary. It's what drives him to keep striving, to keep growing. And it's what makes every moment of this journey, no matter how challenging, so incredibly rewarding. It's my responsibility to pull him out of that spiral and help him refocus, the coach said with conviction. Reflecting on a specific moment, he shared an instance that highlighted this struggle. During one tournament, Carlos was feeling the immense weight of expectations. He had just come off a grueling match, a hard-fought victory, but instead of celebrating, he was sitting in a corner, analyzing every point he felt he could have played better. I pulled him aside and said, "Carlos, you won. That's what matters. Take a moment to appreciate it." It took him a while to absorb it, but eventually, he smiled and admitted, "You're right." Moments like that remind me how young he really is, despite the maturity he shows on the court. The coach also delved into the unique challenge of balancing Alcaraz's natural talent with the need for structure. Carlos has this extraordinary ability to improvise on the court. He can pull off shots no one expects, and it's breathtaking to watch. But sometimes, that creativity can lead to inconsistency. One of my biggest challenges is helping him find the balance between instinct and discipline. I don't want to stifle his creativity. It's part of what makes him special, but I also want to give him a solid foundation to rely on when things aren't going his way. He paused, his expression thoughtful. What makes Carlos so exceptional is that he's willing to listen and adapt. He's not stuck in his ways. He's always looking for ways to improve. But that openness can also make him vulnerable to overthinking. He'll try to incorporate every piece of advice, every strategy, every technique, and sometimes that leads to information overload. It's my job to help him filter the noise and focus on what's truly important. The conversation took a reflective turn as the coach discussed the sacrifices Alcaraz has made for his career. Most people don't realize what it takes to reach this level. Carlos has given up so much: time with friends, family gatherings, simple pleasures like going to the movies or relaxing at the beach. And he's done it willingly because he's so committed to his goals. But there are moments when I see the toll it takes on him. He'd never say it out loud, but I know he feels the weight of what he's missing. He shared a poignant memory that underscored this. After a particularly grueling tournament, Carlos mentioned how much he missed his family. He's incredibly close to them, and being away for long stretches is tough for him. I told him it's okay to miss them, that it's okay to feel that way. I could see the relief on his face just hearing someone acknowledge that it's not easy. The coach also highlighted Alcaraz's humility and gratitude, qualities that set him apart from many players. Carlos never forgets where he comes from. He's grounded despite all the success and attention. He's the first to thank the ball kids, the maintenance staff, everyone who contributes to the game. That humility is rare, especially in someone so young, and it's one of the reasons I respect him so much. Smiling, the coach recounted a lighter moment during a practice session. Carlos noticed one of the ball kids struggling to keep up. Instead of getting frustrated, he stopped and offered them some encouragement. He said, "You're doing great, take your time." It was a small thing, but it speaks volumes about who he is as a person. The tone grew more serious as the coach addressed the challenges of managing Alcaraz's public image. Carlos is under constant scrutiny. Every word he says, every gesture he makes, it's all dissected by the media and fans. That kind of pressure would break a lot of people, but Carlos handles it with grace. Still, there are moments when it gets to him. After all, he's only human. He shared insights into how they navigate this aspect of his career. We've had long conversations about dealing with the spotlight. I tell him to focus on what he can control, to stay true to himself, and the rest will fall into place. It's easier said than done, but Carlos is learning. He's incredibly mature for his age, but he's still figuring things out, and that's okay. The coach's admiration for Alcaraz was evident as he reflected on their journey together. Working with Carlos isn't just about coaching tennis. It's about helping him grow as a person, as a competitor, and as a leader. It's a challenge, yes, but it's also one of the most rewarding experiences of my career. As he concluded, the coach expressed confidence in Alcaraz's future. Carlos has a long road ahead, but I have no doubt he'll continue to inspire everyone he meets, on and off the court. His dedication, humility, and passion are rare, and they're what make him truly special.